I've worked with Alex Hormozi one-on-one in order to understand his sales strategies he uses with his own business and his portfolio companies to generate hundreds of millions of dollars. In this video, we're going to walk through some of the most powerful and most common things that he has suggested, both on camera and off camera. Some of the things you see on social media, and some of these you probably didn't even know that he recommends. But here's the fun part. I'm not only going to explain what the strategy is, I'm going to explain why it works and how you can use it in other areas of your business, not just in the sales process. And how all of it works on a psychological level. Because if you don't know me, hi, my name's Christian Jack. I run a business called Wired to Buy, where we help business owners put their client acquisition on easy mode by working with human psychology and behavior rather than what most people do, which is completely against how humans actually think and make decisions. So I'm going to take all of this advice that Alex has given and break it down into a simple step-by-step process that you can use in your business today. Okay, now the first thing that I want to go over is you don't need unicorn closers, all right? Now this is a bit of a hot take because I am a unicorn closer myself. I have closed at 100% and even more plenty of times myself, and I come from a background in sales, so I really know how to sell at a very high level. And I agree completely with what Alex teaches here, is that you don't need unicorn closers. Now, it depends on the stage of business that you're in, but if you think about it this way, this is just system throughput. Like, this is basic engineering, if you want to think about it this way. If you have a system where there are 3 parts, if you want to think about it this way: marketing, sales, fulfillment. If you are overly reliant on this middle dot, the sales, then you can suck at these outer systems, right? Because you are able to keep the throughput via this middle constraint, the sales process. However, that does not make for a very solid business, because then your business is really heavily reliant on a very few set of people. A unicorn closer is typically somebody on your team who closes $1 million a month or somewhere close to that, right? And so if you have one person on your team closing $1 million in revenue in a month, and let's say the rest of your sales team is doing 500K or 300K or whatever, then if you lose that person, then you lose like half your revenue overnight. If they have a bad day, if they get sick. And so you are basically building your 3-legged stool on this one leg more than the other. So all that you need to do is shift your focus from having unicorn closers to unicorn marketing instead, because from a systems throughput perspective, it's a lot harder for a marketing system to break than a closer, if that makes sense. So I won't spend too much time on that. I feel like that one's fairly obvious. Now, psychologically, what this means is you are more systems oriented than people oriented, and it may be a shift for some of you, but when you have a system built that handles things rather than a human, it's usually a lot more efficient. It gets things done faster, and it has a more consistent output than humans do. However, there is something to account for in the human side of things. So I'm not saying that you should like replace your entire closing team with systems, but just something to think about. You don't need a unicorn closer, and you should probably not even look for unicorn closers for your offer until you really have your marketing dialed in. Now, there's another thought process with this, that you can have unicorn closers first and then get your marketing dialed in from the closers. You just have to make sure, as somebody who's managed dozens of sales teams, I've done it over $1 million a month, make sure that when you have unicorn closers, you treat them like unicorn closers, and you also get data from them as much as humanly possible, because the data is what will inform your marketing processes to be able to essentially not replace the unicorn closer, but be able to move the selling from the call to before the call, aka your marketing and acquisition system. All right, number 2 in the sales process is hiring for traits, not experience. Traits over experience. Now, what this means is when you are hiring salespeople or just anybody that works within the sales process, you want to prioritize traits over experience. Now, if you can get both in the same person, fantastic. They're usually going to be a bit more expensive as a hire. If you can do that, that's great. But if you have to just pick one because maybe you didn't target the right group of people, maybe your advertising for the role isn't where it needs to be in the job post and you're not attracting the right type of people, look for traits over experience, because traits are very difficult to teach. Right? When you speak to somebody, you can immediately tell what traits they have, what their values are. Do they value short-term pain for long-term gain? Do they value putting in the work? Do they value showing up with discipline and consistency every day? Do they value communication? Do they value service to other people rather than just taking whatever they can get? This is what this means. Traits over experience. Whereas if you had to pick between that person and let's say somebody who just is a complete lazy piece of shit, doesn't do their end of day, doesn't do anything they're supposed to do, but they have a lot of experience, you're probably going to have a headache and a half hiring them and training them and getting them to do anything that needs done, especially if there happens to come a day where they don't feel like doing it. So, traits over experience. All right, now we are talking about onboarding. Onboarding, most people get wrong because they treat it as a welcome, but onboarding is actually a filter. When you are onboarding somebody onto your team, it is an initial trial period. Like genuinely, somebody can talk a big talk. They can even have experience to back it up. They can have track record that you can check with their previous employers and all that kind of fun stuff. But let's be real, you've probably checked everything that you can check before on a hire and they still came in and didn't perform to the level that you expected them to perform. And it may not necessarily be a training problem on your end. It may just be that there were the wrong expectations set when they came into the business. And I'll tell you from my experience, I have hired hundreds of people at this point. I've also fired hundreds of people at this point. And every single time that we run onboarding as a filter instead of as a welcome, people stay longer, they perform better, their mindset is in the right place, they push harder, and ultimately they just end up being a better team member for the long run. Now, psychologically, the reason that this works is that they kind of come in with a mindset that yes, they're hired, but they're still on trial. They're still needing to hit certain things in order to stay on the team. We're talking things like numbers and KPIs and standards and culture and everything in between. So when you're hiring somebody onto your team, generally I'm going to take them through a couple of different phases. So I'm going to give you sub phases here. Phase number one is no actual work. Now this may seem kind of counterintuitive, but I want them to do mock work. All right. This means fake work, role plays, situations, trials, all that kind of good stuff if it wasn't in the hiring process. If you have this in the hiring process, then you can skip the first step. The second step is pressure and repetition, okay? What sort of pressure can they take and what sort of repetition can they handle before getting bored on something? I want to test this right at the beginning and set this as a standard because, you know, something that Alex says as an example is volume negates luck. And so if you want to be a lucky business owner and like every once in a while have success and every once in a while hire somebody onto your team that does well, great, you go for it. But for me personally, I want to negate luck. I want to make sure that I have systems set in place like this that can allow me to make sure that every time I hire somebody, they're going to be the right fit and that they're going to work out for the long term within reason as much as possible. Because it is incredibly inconvenient to go through all this work only for the employee to leave or them to just not be the right fit and me have to fire them anyway. The last step I'm going to put here is earn the work. That's it. So somebody goes from just having mock work to actually getting solid work from actual clients and all that. You know, maybe in the sales process, you're taking sales calls as an example. You have to earn that stuff. You don't just get it. You have to earn it through these first two things. And if you don't, then you're probably just going to leave anyway. Typically, all of this happens in a 1 to 2 week period. Depending on the size of your deals, like I was working with a capital investment banking firm, and obviously their deals are a lot larger. We're talking millions and tens of millions and sometimes hundreds of millions of dollars. You don't just want to bring somebody on and in their first 2 weeks, give them something like that. Like, it's probably not going to be a good option. However, you can have them shadow and you may extend this past 1 to 2 weeks to maybe 1 or 2 months. All right, the next step is breathing the script and not reading it. Breathe, don't read. There's a big difference between breathing and reading. When you are reading a script, whether you're on the sales team or you're on the fulfillment team or whatever it may be, even on a marketing video, let's just say a piece of content like this, when you are reading a script, your brain is focused on reading. Like, I don't think you really understand to read something out loud takes a lot of cognitive load. Your brain literally consumes a good amount of calories just reading a script, understanding it in real time, and giving it the inflection and all that kind of stuff to make it sound natural. This is why actors rehearse for hours and hours and days and weeks and even months and months before performing for a role. And so your sales team, your fulfillment team, in your marketing, you should probably do the same. Now, it may not be the most economical for you to rehearse for months before doing a video like this as an example. However, it would be helpful for your sales team to know their script forwards and backwards. Now, I'm not the biggest proponent of scripts. However, it is a necessary part of the process of learning. So start with scripts and then get them off of it as soon as they are ready to, okay? So get them to breathe the script, not just read it. All right, number 5 is that availability is the greatest sales process tactic. All right, availability is king. Open up more slots on the calendar. Talk to people more regularly. Have faster speed to lead. The more that you can be available to talk to your customers on a day-to-day basis, the better you're going to do as a business. I promise you, the more you're going to sell, the higher you're going to convert, all that kind of fun stuff. So what this means is have team members that have full availability on their calendar rather than just small amounts. I will say you're probably going to have to pay more for somebody to be available as much as you want them to be available, like 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. However, those people, let's be real, are probably going to perform better. They're going to ramp up faster. They're going to be better long-term fits. And at the end of the day, they're going to produce more revenue and give you happier clients because they are able to take calls when people need them to be able to take calls, when your prospects are able to take calls, and they're going to be able to respond faster whenever a prospect is like ready to go or a follow-up needs to happen or they're confirming the call beforehand, whatever it might be. So availability is king. And I will say this is not just for sales. Obviously, this is for every part of your business. In the fulfillment side, the more available that you can have team members for specific areas of the business, the more that your clients, your customers, whether it's before or after they pay, are going to be happy with you. And therefore, the more they're going to be willing to pay you, the more they trust you. This is one of the first things that we audit whenever we work with a company in our Wire to Buy program, is just see how available are you to actually speak with your customers. Now, number 6 inside of the sales process is the off-call SOP. So I'm just gonna put this very, very simply. This is a basic concept, but basic does not mean that it is always done, right? This is a very simple concept, but just because something is simple doesn't mean that people actually follow through and do it. It's simple to be healthy. It's simple to make money, yet people don't do it. Why? Because they don't like it. Now, off-call SOP, all that it means is that when you are not on a call directly with a client, like one-on-one or one-to-many, you need to be doing revenue-producing activities. Especially everybody, if you have a sales team that's doing this, every single person on your sales team, you need to have a specific system, a specific standard operating procedure on what they're supposed to do off call. What is the priority first and then downward. So as an example, the basic metaphor that I use for this is the finish line. When you are paid as a salesperson, you're typically paid on commission, right? You are paid to help people get over the finish line, not to help people start the race. That's marketing. So leave marketing to marketing, and salespeople, especially like closers as an example, should just focus on their part of the process, which is getting people over the finish line. And setters are meant to help people transition from marketing to the closing call. So this is more like the middle of the race. So have each of those roles focus on just their role. Closers focus on who is closest to the finish line and just getting them over. Anytime that you are finished with a call and your next one no-shows or reschedules or cancels or whatever, find the people in your pipeline right then and there that are closest to the finish line and do your best to nudge them over. Call them. Ideally, don't just like text them or email them. Actually call them. Get them over the line. Whatever they need, get them extra resources. Reach out to the owner or management to see what extra things that we can include in their package to customize it for them. Frame some urgency or some scarcity, whatever it may be. But just focus on the people closest to the finish line and get them over. And then once you run out of people that are like one step away from the finish line, then you go to the people that are 2 steps away from the finish line and you just move them closer, potentially over the line if you can, so on and so forth. So as an example, somebody who cancels a call should be reached out to before somebody who no-shows a call. Because if somebody no-shows a call, that means that they haven't responded and they aren't really interested if they're not responding, more often than not. There might be some things where life gets in the way, of course, like my power went out the other day and I had a sales call booked with another company and so I couldn't make it. But like, let's be real, that doesn't really happen all that often. So cancels, somebody had to actually go in and click cancel, which means that they have intent of some kind, or at least they are responsive. which means that you're probably going to have a better chance of calling them and actually getting them to pick up the phone and texting them and getting them to answer. So small thing, big difference. Overall, you need to have off-call SOPs for everybody on your team, whether they're on the sales team or anywhere else on the team. Number 7 is what we call the decision layer. This is the part of the human brain where people actually make decisions. And I promise you, it's not where you think it is. A lot of people think that decisions are made emotionally and then justified with logic. Technically not. That's really not how things work. I will give you a basic analogy for understanding this. You have 2 columns, all right? 2 categories. You have a yes decision and you have a no decision. Now, yes decision means that somebody is taking a step towards buying your thing. No decision means they're taking a step away from buying your thing. No one is static. They're either moving towards or away. And so the question is, on a sales call or in your marketing, which direction are they going, right? So you find the people that you want to sell to and you have them make decisions and you simply just tally them up. All that it means is how many decisions have they made toward buying your stuff, and then how many decisions have they made away from buying your stuff within the process. So as an example, if your salesperson hops on the call and they clearly don't care about the prospect, they don't ask questions about where they are right now, what they're doing, their situation, the prospect is probably going to make a couple of decisions in that conversation for, no, I don't want to buy this stuff because they are impersonal, they don't care about me. However, if in your marketing and in your content, you extremely heavily go on that topic, it won't matter because you have all of these things. It won't matter that your salesperson sucks. Let's be honest. That's why you can do this, where is it? That's why you can do this first tactic. You don't need unicorn closers because you just hammer people the right way in your content and in your ads and in your funnel leading up to the sales call. However, if you're not able to hammer them with content and ads and indoctrination, propaganda essentially before the sales call, then yeah, you're gonna have to rely on your salespeople more. And if they suck, that's going to be a bunch more of these tallies, all right? So all of this decision layer is about is understanding how many decisions toward buying are our prospects taking and how many are they taking away from things. So this is a proponent, I will say, of adding friction into your process and adding steps for people to take. Now, it doesn't have to be a lot of friction, but it has to be a little bit, enough for them to buy in and want to take the next step. This is not just about getting as frictionless of a system as possible. Yes, as frictionless as possible can be a good thing. However, then you're going to get people to the end of the buying process when it's time to make the payment who were never serious to begin with. And they're like, oh, I thought this was free. It's terrible. People don't like that. All right, now number 8 is one that Alex has talked about a ton on content, but I'm going to explain it to you in a way that maybe you have never heard before. It's called BAMFAM. BAMFAM is an acronym. It stands for book a meeting from a meeting. Now, all this means is that you never leave a meeting without another call booked. That's it. Now, this is true in your sales process. This is true in your fulfillment process. This is true everywhere inside of your business, even from like a leadership perspective. When you have a leadership meeting, you need to then book a meeting from that meeting in order to reassess the results, all that kind of fun stuff from the projects that you're working on, initiatives that you're planning. The reason that this works is because it creates an open loop in all participants' minds. And open loops, the brain hates open loops and seeks to resolve them at all costs. All that an open loop is that it's a question that's unresolved. What this will also do is plant an anchor in somebody's mind. Whenever they go and try to do other stuff or maybe book with other companies, etc., they're gonna have this other meeting booked in the future and their brain is gonna remember it because there is an open loop, there's a question in their brain, and it's going to stop them from potentially moving forward with other people. You ever been on a sales call and somebody's like, oh, I can't close because I have a meeting booked with another company and I'd like to see what they have. Like, you can't have already chatted with them beforehand and just book this next meeting if you leave an open loop. If you don't leave an open loop, then they may just end up closing for your competitors rather than for yourself. All right, number 9 is obstacles over objections. Now, you've probably heard the word objection before. You probably know exactly what they are, but do you know obstacles? Okay, this is basically what we call objection before the price drop. That's all that an obstacle is. So objections happen after price drop when there's now the the pressure, if you will, of there being money attached to the conversation and somebody's potentially emotional relationship with their money and with their bank account. Obstacles are happening before the money conversation. Therefore, there's not this extra complication of there being, this potential emotional relationship with money. Now, I will say this does change depending on how emotional of an attachment somebody has to their finances. So typically when we talk about more quote unquote sophisticated prospects, they have a less emotional attachment to their money because they realize it is a tool. They've had success in their life using it as a tool. And so therefore they will continue to do that rather than be emotionally attached to it. Like somebody who doesn't have a lot of it, has worked extremely hard for it, feels like they never have enough of it. And so they hold on to it with everything they have, AKA poor prospects. So obstacles are great to deal with on both sides of the coin for poor prospects and rich prospects, as an example. The more that you can deal with objections before price is involved, the better. The more that you leave things towards the end, the more you're going to be playing with fire because you don't know how emotionally attached to money somebody is. Now, I will say not all rich prospects are non-emotional about their finances. Some of them are extremely emotional, sometimes even more so than poor prospects. Don't think of it as a one-size-fits-all equation. Figure it out for the person that you're speaking with. But in general, handle more obstacles and you'll have to handle less objections. And obstacles are a ton easier to handle than objections. Now, number 10 is lead scoring. A lot of people score their leads, but I promise you're not doing it in the way that I'm about to tell you how to do it. Now, number one, why this is important is so that you can actually route your best leads to specific people so that you can track who you are attracting in your marketing, and overall just have a better system to bring in leads and convert them. But there's an extra way that you can score leads, leveraging a psychological principle called a personality behavioral profile. Now, if you don't know this, look it up. There's a system called DISC. You can lead score your leads based on their DISC profile and also assign them to closers or to team members who are able to handle that specific style or complement it well. So as an example, if you don't know DISC, D stands for dominance. You probably picture somebody in your mind right now, maybe it's even you, that is a dominant personality. They are always, they're ripped, jacked, they have testicles hanging off the back of their big white lifted truck, whatever it may be. Like you get the gist, not shaming anybody here for sure. But imagine if you have that kind of lead. Rich person makes a ton of money. They're very alpha. They're very like my way or the highway. Take a prospect like that and pair it with an S as an example or a C. Let's take a C. Say you have a closer on your team who's a C. They're very analytical. They like everything to go in its place. They like things to fit together. Those are polar opposite personalities. And you may just lose the sales simply because their personalities are not matched. So you can just simply add tags in your CRM and dictate your call booking flow based off of them for DISC. If you want to learn more about DISC, you can literally Google it. I teach this framework and a bunch more inside of my program, Wired to Buy, and inside of the Game of Influence school community. So if you'd like to learn more in like a structured environment where you don't have to go and just kind of hope that what you learn is right, then you can join up in there. Number 11 is referrals. This is the secret sauce if you want to make exponentially more money over time, okay? Referrals are the only way to exponentially grow your business because every time you get one referral, and say you get one new client, then they're probably going to refer you to 3 to 5 new people. And then out of those 3 to 5 new people, let's say that you get 1 to 3 people to sign up. Out of those 1 to 3, they refer you to 3 or 5 new people. And so it compounds over and over and over, whereas you can increase your ad spend a certain amount and you'll probably get a little bit more ROI on it, a little bit more ROAS, or you can increase your content output and get a little bit more return. But referrals are the way to exponentially increase your sales basically overnight. However, you need to make a system for them. I'm going to give you the most basic but most underrated system you've ever heard, and it is to simply ask everyone. I mean, ask people that you close, ask people you don't close, ask people you completely burned as a lead, ask people that are in the follow-up stages while they're still following up. Ask every single person that you talk to for referrals, and don't ask them, could you connect me with somebody who might also have this problem, you just directly ask, who do you know that also struggles with A and B and C that would like to achieve X and Y and Z in your circle? Give me 3 people. And then you just wait and you let them tell you. They're probably going to try to wiggle out, oh, I don't know how many. It's like, sure you do. Who do you know? Now, if you haven't asked for referrals before, you don't realize that referrals actually close at about, on average, 80% higher than all of your other leads. And the psychological reason behind why this works is that there is a transfer of trust. Okay, somebody doesn't have to meet you for the first time. They've already met their friend. They've already met their acquaintance. They have trust, and that trust is transferred onto you as a third party. So you don't have to go through the whole rigmarole of building trust in the way that you do with a brand new lead who's completely cold, who's never seen your face before. You do still have to go through some marketing and some warming up. Like, don't get that wrong. Make sure that when your salespeople ask for referrals, that there is an actual marketing system that salespeople can put referrals through to warm them up, indoctrinate them, teach them what they need to know before actually having a money conversation. The biggest mistake people make, I've seen when asking for referrals for salespeople, is number 1, not asking enough. Number 2, not assuming that they know somebody. And then also number 3, not having the process to warm these people up, because while there is more trust, they are still fairly cold in terms of a new lead. So there needs to be a specific marketing system for referrals just as much as in your organic content, in your ads, etc. We got 2 left. Number 12 is role play. Number 13 is transfer of trust and belief. And these actually go hand in hand. Now, one of the things that Alex Hormozi does really, really well that he doesn't exactly teach, he teaches through repetition and volume, which can work, but it's really not what's at the root of what's happening. Alex does a fantastic job of transferring trust and belief to other people because he's just a very straightforward person. He's a very logical thinker. He's very analytical. He's very smart. And because of that, he's able to just be straight, be real with people. He doesn't seek other people's approval as well. And so all of those things together creates somebody who other people trust and believe on the get-go, which is fantastic. But what ends up happening is a lot of people will try to be somebody like that and gain the trust of other people, but have that be the focus rather than the output, right? Now, this is why these two are put together. When you role play, all that it is it's structured practice, right? When you practice with somebody, when you run through a script, when you run through a process, you run through a framework or a conversation, you do a repetition, you automatically, after you do that enough times, are going to understand it well enough where you can focus on other things. AKA the prospect in a conversation, or your employee in a leadership conversation, or your client if you're in fulfillment. And when you can actually focus on the person, that is what will establish more trust and belief, because they can see you listening to them, they can see you asking relevant questions to them and not just following a process. And that is one of the things, again, that Hormozi does so well. He doesn't really, there are processes and frameworks, of course, that he uses, but largely he's just speaking from the heart and from experience, and you can tell. And so you believe in him and you trust him. He has no bullshit. He doesn't hold anything back whenever he's talking. So if you want the meta principle here, is really out of all of these things, obviously these are all a lot of tactics, but really focus on these last two, the idea of doing enough repetitions beforehand and practicing enough so that when it comes to game time, you're not thinking about it. Steph Curry in NBA does not think about it when he goes up to take a jump shot in a game, because he's practiced it thousands and thousands of times before, right? When somebody steps up to the plate in baseball, they should not have to think about how to hit the ball. They just react and they do it, but they do it well because they've practiced so many times beforehand. So do not chase the second bit. Do not chase getting people to trust you and believe you. Chase doing the repetitions so that the transfer of trust and belief happens automatically as a result rather than as the focus in the first place. Because when it comes as a result, it happens naturally, versus when you try to force it in the beginning, people feel it and they hate it and they do exactly the opposite of what you want them to do. They distrust you and they don't believe you. Now, all 13 of these tactics are things taught by Hormozi, both on camera and off camera. But the thing about tactics is that they only work when they work with human psychology. That's the reason that some tactics work, some don't. And it's also why one tactic that works now probably won't work in a month because of fatigue in the market, because the market changes, the climate changes, geopolitical events, whatever it may be. Tactics end up expiring. If you're constantly watching YouTube videos, hiring mentors, agencies, applying all these tactics into your business, and you just feel like you're playing whack-a-mole year after year, then I've got something for you. I've built a system to put client acquisition on easy mode. It's what helped Nima go from $1 million a month to $4 million a month in 120 days. Joe went from $15K a month to $100K a month in 45 days. Julian ended up going from, I think it was like $297 to $338K in a month on a third of the sales calls that he was taking himself, on like 13 calls to do $338K a month. It's insane. So I've built a system that actually works with human psychology in order to put your client acquisition on easy mode so you stop feeling like you're playing whack-a-mole. If that interests you, just hit the link down in the description below. Apply, someone from our team will reach out and we could potentially chat on how we might be able to help you. Stop chasing all these tactics and just understand the operating system underneath so that acquiring customers for your business can feel easy. And if not, all good. I'll see you in the next video.